Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Woodstock City Council, July 11th, 2024. This hybrid meeting is being held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website, and all councilors are in attendance, so we're not expecting anyone virtually here this evening that I'm aware of. We did have a closed session that started at 6:15 this evening that we concluded at 6:41, just before this meeting started. And with that, looking for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Any disclosure of new business? Matters arising from the minutes? And now the minutes. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Shanberg, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on June 20th, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns with those? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Next up, we have additions to the agenda. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Tate that the following item be added to the agenda. Department reports item 14.G.1, Next Generation 911 Authority Service Agreement.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. No presentations, but we do have delegations tonight. So I'll ask John Yeselstein to come forward. Sorry, it's Accioni, so I'm used to it too. Please come forward to the podium. Thank you, John. For Maranatha Christian Reformed Church, of course, for those watching at home. So welcome.
Yep, thank you. I feel out of place. I'm not wearing a tie. So, anyways, my name is John Eisenstein. Now that I'm old, people don't know me. When I was younger, everybody knew me. Now they know my sons. Everybody's probably heard of Dunsville Artisan Cheese. No cheese lovers here? Yeah. Well, that's my oldest son. But anyways, I'm here representing Maranatha Christian Reformed Church located on 735 Frontenac Crescent. I'm here to ask for the city for a reduction on the cost of $142,985 to about half, approximately $75,000, to allow us to put in a driveway from Juliana Drive to our church property. On May 28, 2019, Harold DeHaan had stated that we would have to pay this close to $143,000 to reimburse the city for the equivalent cost of half of a local road along the frontage of our property. At that time, we chose not to, as it was a lot of money. That was after the building and everything else, expense, and decided to go for the two entries, one on Chaplin and the other on Frontenac. At this time now, we would like to sell a lot on Frontenac, which is on the west entrance to our church property, to help pay for an entrance off Juliana Drive. I spoke with the city planner, Filipino, and he did not think there would be a problem for the severance of this lot, which would require a zoning change from special community facility zone CF-10 to residential zone R2. The lot would be 10 meters wide and 30 meters deep, the same as all the existing residential lots on both sides of this driveway that would be severed. Excuse me. Reasons for putting an entrance off Juliana Drive. Visitors that come to attend our church have difficulties finding the entrances. Now they have to drive through a subdivision to find the entrance. Could be difficult for some, especially older. Replacing a driveway to residential would make some happy neighbors, as they don't have to put up with the traffic going through the entrance. I noticed the one property beside the driveway right now is for sale again. There are a lot of elderly residents that go to our church that live in the Cedar View Retirement Home and in the Juliana Apartments across from our church. Some have walkers, which makes it difficult for them crossing over curves and grass to get to our church. There are a lot of other community organizations that use our facility. Weight Watchers once a week, graduations, Urine Park, St. Mary's, Woodstock Christian, weekly community knitting groups, as well as rug hooking. So, did I say that right? Hooking? A lot of community sports groups, meetings for youth groups, Indwell, Condo Core, etc. Periodic funeral homes will use our facility. Events like GEMS for Java, Mothers for Ethiopia, a lot of dinners for Indwell, Transfer for Christ, and there's many others. People park at our facility when visiting people at Woodstock General Hospital, when their parking lot is full, and we get that all week. Preschool meets daily. So in summary, we are a nonprofit organization, and there are a lot of organizations that use our facility. And I think it would be beneficial to have a visible entrance off Juliana Drive. For these reasons, we are asking for reduction on the costs from the city for a front entrance off Juliana Drive so we can make it more affordable for it to happen. So that's my thing. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. Any questions of the delegation? Counselor Schanberg.
Sorry about that. A message from or a question from the mayor through to our delegation. Have you done any kind of an appraisal on the property that you could possibly sell on Frontenac to be able to understand how that would help augment the overall cost of your entrance off Juliana?
Yes, I have. I've gotten quotes from 4 real estate agents. I got written quotes here. It's kind of a broad spectrum, but it runs anywhere from 95,000 to 250,000. So they're all different, and as well as you all know, especially now, lots in the last 3-4 months have dropped considerably, 15-20%, probably because of the interest rate or whatever. So we're figuring on about 125,000.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
A bit of a comment and a question, through the mayor to the delegation. I will agree that getting into the facility can be a real pain in the butt for people. I'm a part of the organization that hosted GEMS in Java, and the communications to get people understanding where they're going was a lot of work, and we had a lot of people that were very confused and lost. So I understand the need for trying to get that entrance onto Juliana. A question maybe for you off of that is, have you had any quotes or ideas roughly of the cost for the actual construction of a laneway? I know that there's still a lot of work to go through before that happens, and if it happens, but do you have rough estimates of what that might cost for you?
Yes, I went through a bit of an effort because I have to present it to our council as well. It's okay. So basically, I met with Enbridge on just 2 days ago, because a major cost is going to be moving the gas line, because there's a gas line that runs through the entrance right now, and we would have to go under Juliana Drive to drill. And so they're coming up with a price right now, which I think will be quite substantial. Real Green Energy, I own part of that, and I know what it costs to put lines underground. So besides that cost, like I know I talked to Filipino, a permit for just for the driveway is $5,000. There's legal fees, adjustments fees to sever the lot. That's going to be $2,500. I have all the costs, and right now the way it looks, we're looking at 285,000 with that 143,000 considered in. So if we sell a lot for like 125,000, it's still gonna cost the church a lot of money, okay? That's why I'm asking for a reduction to help us out, because I know earlier with Harold DeHaan, when he was, actually, my wife taught 4 of his kids. So anyways, it's a different circumstance now, because there's a lot more people using our facility. We are a nonprofit, like I said, and I think it's only fair, I mean, that why do we have to pay for everybody else, if you know what I'm saying? Like our property has been used by a lot of organizations, parking for the hospital, all that stuff. So that's why I'm asking for not total amount, 75 half. But of course, that's negotiable. Anything would help. Because, you know, like I said, I mean, the church is not in it to make money. We're just trying to represent the community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, John.
Is there any
Thank you
gun
for
sale
being here,
cheese
sir.
lovers? 5 brothers are my sons.
I know, yeah, I didn't even put it together when I saw the name. I don't know why I never even, my apologies. Say hi to them for us, please.
Very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
when
thank
will
you.
I hear something?
Yeah, you can stick around. We're gonna probably still possibly have questions of staff depending.
So after the meeting or?
Nope, no, stick around for a few minutes.
Oh.
Have a seat, please.
I'm still a farmer and I have to get back to my cows, but I'll.
No problem. Yep, yeah. Questions of council or discussion? Then I'll ask for a motion on the floor. Counselor Wismer Van Meer,
I move that Woodstock City Council approve the request from Maranatha Christian Reformed Church to reduce the fee for the installation of a driveway entrance onto Juliana Drive by 50%.
okay, is there a seconder on that motion? Seeing none, then I'd ask for another motion on the floor. Counselor Leatherborough,
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council deny the request from Marathan Christian Reformed Church to reduce the fee for the installation of a driveway entrance onto Juliana Drive by 50%.
okay, is there a seconder on that motion? Counselor Lauder. Discussion, would you like to speak to that, Counselor Leatherborough?
Through your worship, thank you very much for coming forward. And I do understand that there's a lot of community groups that flock to your space and utilize that space, and I appreciate that. I'm just a bit concerned with a price reduction in this form that other people, such as developers, things like that, could also come forward to ask or expect the same. There's been a lot of talk about the budget process that we had in March and taxes and things like that. So just trying to be a bit more specific in terms of how to go about making it fair and try to help a community group out, although trying not to set a precedent that could harm in other ways. So that's all I can add at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Tate?
Just through the chair, if we could have Mr. DeHaan speak to the motion.
Your worship, through the counselor. Yeah, just to give a little background of how we came to here, I guess. When that area developed, we told the developer that the whole idea was to keep Juliana as a corridor. So we're trying to minimize as many driveways and entrances as possible. So we told the developer at that time, because he had that lot there, that we weren't going to allow any connections to Juliana. And because of that, in order to be fair, we said we would pay for half the road, so the frontage along that lot. Because of that, we paid him. He then took 2 of his residential lots and made them accesses to the site. At the time, I think he was originally planning for it to be a townhouse block. And then I think even before things got constructed, he came up with a deal with Maranatha and sold it to the church. The Maranatha did ask us a number of years ago if we would allow them to have access to Juliana. At the time, we said yes, and I still think it's doable because it is a church, it has off-peak hours. It doesn't have the peak hours that we're trying to avoid on Juliana. Most of their traffic is in the, like I said, off-peak times. And so because of that, we said yes. However, we need to be reimbursed for the money that we paid for half the road then. So that issue's kind of been hanging for a number of years now until John recently called me up and said, well, can I get a discount on it? And I told him at the time, I said, well, I don't have the authority to do that. I can either charge you full rate or nothing at all, but if you want a discount, you have to talk to council.
Thank you. May I ask a question before because you just spoke, Carol, if I can, through to yourself. The cost then, when the road was built, is what is being charged, not what it would cost today, correct?
That is correct. 142,000 is what we paid the developer in 2009.
And what would that be approximately today?
Converting it to 2024 dollars is just over 200,000.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Just a bit of comment. I did go back and forth with Mr. DeHaan this week on this one because at first I was a bit hesitant to support it. My thought behind it is we're continuously donating property and time and such to many not-for-profits within our community. And if we added up that, I think it would far exceed what Maranatha Church is asking us for, if we really break down numbers. And speaking with Mr. DeHaan, and just being in this area, knowing that this is something that is beneficial for them as an organization, but also folks that use that area. I have people I know that live down near Frontenac and Champlain, and the traffic, I mean, there's young families there. Avoiding having so many cars going in and out of that area would be beneficial for safety as well. When there is an event there, when a high school is holding a graduation, there are hundreds upon hundreds of people going into that facility. So I think there's many benefits to it. And to me, this is why I supported it. If the 50% is something that council is not comfortable with, I think Mr. Eiselstein kind of alluded to the fact that any bit of a break would be beneficial. So if there's something a little bit less than 50% that makes council more comfortable, I think we should consider it. But I also just want to remind council that we do often give our support of in-kind to a number of not-for-profits. And, you know, that has to be something that we do consider along these lines, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, okay, now that I've heard your argument, it kind of changes my mind a little bit. So, and I just was talking to the city engineer, so maybe I'll ask the CAO, because this is maybe a special issue because it is more charity and it is a church. Does it set a precedent then? Are we going to be in trouble with other developers? I have the exact same concerns as Councillor Leatherbarrow, but now that I hear your argument, now I'm thinking,
Your worship, through to Councillor Tate, the city has always followed the principle of development pays for development, in the sense that in a developing area, those individuals who are buying the properties within the area that's being serviced are paying for the infrastructure that is being constructed to support them. And so in this case, when Juliana was built, the city front-end financed that half cost of the road. Now, Juliana is a wider road. It is a collector arterial road. The extra width of that road is financed from development charges. And of course, development charge revenue comes from those who are building houses and industrial buildings in the city. So the city funded it from that road construction from two different sources. The city has a very long-standing practice of being development friendly, in the sense that we will front-end finance frequently for work that is required to advance a development proposal. There are many instances where development is not clean, it's messy. You'll get out of turn development where one developer on a property wants to develop, but you got to come across two other properties that aren't being developed. And so who pays? And so the city has a longstanding practice of stepping in and saying, we will front end finance that. So the city has a fair amount of investment in these circumstances where we have front end financed, and we do use things like 1 foot reserves, which is the method that's used here in order to guarantee that we can collect that money back from whoever is going to benefit from that. Does it set a precedent? Well, yes, it does, but this is council's decision. There is no other influence, regulation, bylaw, policy that council needs to worry about. This is your decision simply as to how much we are going to recover our cost. As Mr. DeHaan said, we have being development friendly, we do not add interest to these costs. We carry them on our books. We have a reserve fund that we use to go to finance these things when they come up. And when a property owner comes to us, we collect them. And it may be $200,000 based on current today's dollars versus 2009 dollars, but cost of construction has experienced inflation far more severe than the inflation of just money. And so that 300 and some odd meters of road, the half cost of that, I would suggest, is very much higher than the 200,000 equivalent cost of dollars in 2024 compared with 2009. But to answer the question, it is council's decision. If council were to approve it, it can't be guaranteed, but it is possible that someone will come in and ask for a similar consideration.
Okay, thank you. Want to continue? Okay, Counselor Tate.
Just a follow up. So normally I already have my decision made before I came here, but now that I've listened to Counselor next to me, but the other issue is, sorry. So when we originally did this, it was with the developer. And now it's the church that has to pay, correct? So it was the developer that got the discount, but now that this is gonna happen, it has to be the land owner of it, so now it's the church, correct? Okay, so if this motion doesn't pass, then I'd be open to some other kind of discount, but you had a good argument and it does change my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. I still stand by my seconding this motion. I do understand that the entrance that they have it is difficult to find it. I remember the first time that I tried to find it, I think I drove up and down that street a few times to find it. But with all the reasons that we've heard from our CIO, I think I still stand by the decision that I've seconded here. And so that's just my thoughts on.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Schadenberg.
Yeah, a question through to the engineer again, Mr. DeHaan. What is the speed limit right now in front of the church, Maranatha Church? Is it 50 or is it already 40 because of the high school coming up?
Your worship, through the counselor, I'm pretty sure it's still 50. It might, I'd have to go and check, but it might be 40 along part of it. But along St. Mary's there, yeah.
Ideally, if you put an entrance therefore at the front of the church with that, therefore, because there's gonna have to be some sort of a left or right hand turning lane to get into the church property, would you therefore lower the speed limit to 40. In other words, what I'm saying is I think we have a speed issue on that street to begin with, and maybe this might be one way of slowing down the vehicles between the hospital and the high school.
Your worship, through the counselor, that's certainly something we may consider. At a bare minimum, though, the church, if this goes through, the church will have to go through a site plan amendment. At which time we will be looking at where the driveway is placed, line of sight issues, that kind of thing.
Just a comment therefore, I think the church was built before the Cedar View Retirement Home, which only has frontage onto Finkel, and the 505 and 515 Finkel apartment buildings that only have access onto Finkel. So therefore, it's not like there's additional traffic because of those buildings, because they could have access from Finkel down to Parkinson or another direction they wanted to go.
Thank you. I guess through to Mr. DeHaan, I got a question kind of relating to that then. With the new apartment building, we just recently approved last meeting, right across the street then, how is that going to affect? I imagine site plan approval will take that into effect?
Your worship, through the counselor, yeah, the new apartment building will be going through site plan approval. If the main entrance for the residents, for that apartment building is off of Alberta.
Will they have access to Juliana? I don't remember the drawing, I'm sorry.
There is a drop-off access to Juliana for visitors. Well, not even for visitors, it's just a drop-off with a 15-minute time delay. So if you want to stay for an extended period of time, you're coming off of Alberta.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni, through you. There's a lot of variables here. We have a cost and we have potential revenue for this organization in the sale of a piece of property. I'd be a little bit more comfortable making a decision when I knew what those final numbers were going to be, because a 50% discount when there could be a revenue that could offset that discount, but we don't know that. There's an unknown there. And so I just put that on the floor for council's consideration, that perhaps waiting to make this decision we'd have some more answers to some of these unknown questions. But that's just the thoughts that are going through my mind on this.
Question I have then for clarification, are you referring to the sale price of the properties to offset? So I think that would be fair to say, though, if we go back to 2009, what those property was worth back then versus what they are worth in 2024 are much higher.
But my thinking is that they do have the potential to offset a significant amount of cost in the construction of a egress onto Juliana.
Okay.
And those are numbers we just don't know for sure.
Thank you. Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Just kind of to respond to what Councillor Martin said, I still think that they're not walking away in the black in this, because we're only lowering this amount. They still have to pay for what Mr. Eiselstein said is the realignment of that gas, which I think anybody that's ever had to go through that process, that is costly. And just the genuine construction costs on top of that too. So this was something that I did ask Mr. DeHaan about myself too, because I zero things about construction and the costs associated to it, but that was one of my concerns. But in kind of just going off of the information I had from him and kind of just looking at the other numbers, I'm not sure that they would walk away with a huge profit by any means in this. If it's one property they're selling, and it's not a huge property that's in there that they would be looking to sell.
Okay, anyone else? I will admit, I was torn on this when I first read it. Heart always goes out to any not-for-profit organization or business or whatever we want to call with the church. It's certainly not for profit, and I understand that. But I'm also very worried about precedent. In my 10 years in this council, I can't think of a single time where and I guess that I'll put that question out to maybe the CAO. is there precedent already? Here we go, talking about precedents already. Is there a precedent now that you can think of where it has been waived even partially in the past? Or anybody on staff for that matter?
Your worship, I can't recall. We've had requests to waive development charge
Yep, I can think of one.
at the hospital.
Yep.
But I cannot recall requests to waive something of this nature.
Okay, thank you. And again, that is the fear with those precedents set, so. With that, any other final comments before I call the vote? And I'll just be clear to council right now, we are voting on the floor right now to deny the request of the 50%. Okay, so with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried 4-3. So that is denied. Very sorry, John. Okay, moving on, consideration of planning reports. 9A, OP 224-05-8 and ZN 8-24-12. Turn it over to our planner, thank you.
Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. As the mayor said, applications OP 24058 and ZN 82412 in the names of Crescent Care Nursing and Retirement Homes Limited and James Lavelle. The subject lands are described as Plan 187, Part Lot 1, east side of Fife Avenue in the city of Woodstock. The lands are bound by Fife
Dustin,
Avenue.
I'm just gonna ask you to stop for a second. I think we lost, oh, maybe not. Are we rebooting? Oh, is it? Okay, I went completely dark and we're dark again. So I just asked for confirmation from IT that we're okay. We're okay? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Mr. Miller, go ahead. My apologies.
And are municipally known as, I'm going to start in the middle of the sentence, 801 Walter Street. The subject lands are currently designated community facilities in Oxford County's official plan and are proposed to be redesignated to low-density residential. The subject lands are zoned Special Community Facility Zone CF3 and are proposed to be rezoned Residential Zone 2 in the city's zoning bylaw. The subject lands were previously purchased by the applicant and were intended to become part of the surrounding retirement and nursing home. The applicant never incorporated the subject lands into the development, and a single detached home on the subject lands has remained in place. The applicant has now determined that the subject property and existing single attached dwelling are surplus to their needs and intend to rezone and redesignate them to reflect the historical and present residential use. It is the opinion of staff that the proposed amendments are consistent with the relevant policies of the provincial policy statement. The development is also considered to be an efficient use of lands, available municipal services, and infrastructure. Planning staff are also of the opinion that the subject lands are suitable for low-density residential development as the site contains an existing single-attached dwelling and is in an area that is characterized by a mix of institutional, commercial, and low-density residential uses. The applicant is proposing to return the existing single-attached dwelling to a residential designation and zone. The proposed amendment to the official plan to redesignate the subject lands from community facilities to residential and low-density residential is considered appropriate as it will reflect the existing historical development of the lands and supports the strategic initiatives and objectives of the plans as it relates to low-density residential development. The proposed zone change can be considered appropriate as a single attached dwelling is a permitted use within the R2 zone, and the subject lands will satisfy the R2 zone provisions relating to lot area, lot frontage, lot depth, and building setbacks. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the policies of the PPS, supports the strategic initiatives of the official plan. As such, staff are satisfied that the applications can be given favorable consideration. As such, staff recommend support of the application to amend the official plan and that council approve in principle the zone change application.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Or Mr. Miller in particular? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Counselor Leatherborough?
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council advised Oxford County Council that it supports the application to amend the official plan file number OP 24-05-8 submitted, excuse me, submitted by Crescent Care Nursing and Retirement Homes Limited and James Laval for lands legally described as Plan 187, Part Lot 1, E/S Fife Avenue in the city of Woodstock to redesignate the subject lands from community facilities to residential and density residential to facilitate the continued residential use of the subject lands, and further that Woodstock City Council approve in principle the zone change application file number ZN 8-24-12 submitted by Crescent Care Nursing and Retirement Homes Limited and James Laval for lands legally described as Plan 187, Part Lot 1E, Part Lot 1E/S Fife Avenue in the city of Woodstock to rezone the subject lands from Special Community Facility CF-3 to Residential Zone 2, R2, to recognize the continued residential use of the subject lands. And further, that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder, Counselor Shanberg. Discussion or questions? Of other staff, Counselor Shanberg?
Yeah, maybe just a comment. I do remember when the reverse happened, when they were sort of taking the residential zoning off of this and making it part of the Crescent Care nursing property. But I think at that point in time, their desire was to, I could be wrong, but you probably remember as well, Mr. Atchoni, that the idea was they wanted more parking space for the Crescent Care facility. It wasn't for an expansion of the actual buildings. So I think this is very good. And even though it's one residential unit is one more than we have today.
Thank you. That's exactly what I recall as well. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried, none opposed. Mr. Miller, ZN 8-24-14, application for zone change, City of Woodstock.
That's right. This is an application by the city of Woodstock. The subject lands are described as Plan 41R 10612, parts 1 and 2 in the city of Woodstock. The lands are located on the east side of Griffin Way, south of Devonshire Avenue. The subject lands are designated traditional industrial in Oxford County's official plan and are currently zoned special general industrial M314 in the city of Woodstock zoning bylaw and are proposed to be rezoned to special general industrial M325. The application for zone change proposes to rezone the subject lands to the same zoning as the lands to the immediate east to provide an entrance to the subject lands. The proposed zoning will eliminate the split zoning of the lands and ensure consistent provisions are applied to the new lot that has been added to the parcel to the east or is to be added to the parcel to the east. The intention is for the added lands to provide an entrance for a future truck terminal. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed zone change is consistent with the PPS policies and is in keeping with the official plan policies as they relate to industrial uses. Staff are satisfied that no zoning deficiencies were created through the lot addition and that both the enlarged and retained lots will have adequate space to accommodate parking, setbacks, landscaping, and proper drainage. Further, staff are satisfied that both lots to be retained and enlarged meet the relevant provisions of their respected zones, M314 and M325, regarding lot area, lot frontage, and setbacks. This application allows for the truck terminal to obtain a more desirable entrance and is in keeping with the relevant policies of the official plan. In light of the foregoing, planning staff are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement and meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan. It can be given favorable consideration. Staff recommend that the city approve the application.
Thank you. Questions of planning staff? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion. Counselor Lauder?
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the application for lands described as Plan 41R 10-612, parts 1 and 2 in the city of Woodstock to rezone the subject property from special general industrial M3-14 to special general industrial M3-25. And further, that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Seconded by Counselor Martin. Discussion or questions? Of any other staff? Counselor Schadenberg.
Yeah, from the mayor, I guess, through Len Mag, your development officer, is there a way that this became a split zoning situation on Woodall Way? How did that happen?
Yeah, your worship, through to the councilor's question, basically what had happened was when we created this industrial subdivision, this was a small parcel that was left over. It was originally proposed at some point that it might be a road that was going through. So just geographically, the property that's just directly north of this is owned by Steve Boy. They'll be coming forward with a plan to develop that lot as well. And when we dealt with the individual to the east, there was thought that this would create a lot of potential, that would, I guess, reduce the amount of potential traffic going out onto County Road 4, particularly with respect to trucks. So we were able to do this, and I think council may recall that we actually nipped a small portion off the east end of the pond, off the berm as well, to create this lot to accommodate this overall development.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Next up, 9C, ZN 8-24-15, application for zone change for ARUs. Mr. Miller.
Good evening. So again, this is an application by the city of Woodstock. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is an amendment to the city's ARU zone provisions and would apply broadly to all lands within the city of Woodstock. ARUs, or additional residential units, were mandated by the province to provide additional affordable housing options where appropriate within the province. Because ARUs are intended to be small, affordable units, when the province mandated ARUs, they also established some standards that supersede local bylaws, including things like requiring a maximum of 1 parking space, where Woodstock's bylaws would typically require 2 per dwelling unit. Because the province allows these units to be located in accessory structures, they're also subject to significantly reduced setbacks compared to normal dwellings. For instance, most dwelling types within this city require a minimum rear yard setback of 7 meters, 7.5 meters. Where an ARU is in a detached structure, it would have a minimum setback of 1.2 meters. So in this case, if approved, the bylaw will be permitting a 6-meter tall structure in rear yards where a maximum of 4-meter structures was previously permitted. ARUs are also exempt from development charges that the city would normally expect from multi-unit residential developments. This report is in response to direction contained within the City of Woodstock Housing Pledge and Planning Staff Report CP 2024-103 that provided additional options to facilitate ARUs throughout the city. Following consideration of the report in April, the City Council meeting, a resolution was adopted that the City of Woodstock Council directs staff to initiate amendments to the city zoning bylaw to provide for a maximum accessory building height of 6 meters, and further that the Woodstock City Council directs staff to initiate amendments to the city zoning bylaw to provide for an increase in the maximum percentage of ARUs so that they can occupy 60% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling. As indicated, the purpose of the application for the zoning bylaw is to increase the maximum height for height permissions for detached residential accessory structures to facilitate development of ARUs on the upper level of a detached accessory structure and to permit ARUs to be up to 60% of the floor area of a principal dwelling. Following Monday's meeting, Eric amended the previous bylaw, I think the one that you saw on Monday, and I believe that council has it now. And is given to council for this meeting. These new changes are intended to clarify that the permitted cumulative area regulations for ARUs contained within a basement or cellar and indicate that they shall not count toward the cumulative gross floor area limit, which I think satisfies Ray Losey's concerns from Monday night and would make his previous minor variance probably not even required should this pass. The proposed amendments are consistent with the provincial policy statement's direction to promote intensification within existing building stock, efficiently use land and resources, provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing types and densities to meet the requirements of the current and future residents of the city by more broadly permitting additional units. The proposed amendment is consistent with the overall policy direction of the official plan respecting the development of ARUs within the city of Woodstock. As the amendments will facilitate the development of ARUs on residential properties that are suitably sized and meet the relevant zoning requirements for ARUs. Although the permitted size of an ARU is relative to the size of the principal dwelling, it will increase beyond the 50% referenced in the official plan policies. They will remain subject to an overall cap of 100 square meters, which will continue to ensure that the size and number of the ARUs remain accessory and appropriate for low-density residential areas. As such, planning staff are satisfied that the intent of these ARU policies will be maintained. The proposed zoning amendment would provide for an increased building height to facilitate the development of ARUs on the upper level of accessory structures. The city's zoning standards for detached accessory structures has limited residential accessory buildings to a maximum of 4 meters since the adoption of the city zoning bylaw in 2010. Council's direction to increase the maximum permitted height for accessory structures will provide additional flexibility and permissions to the city residents who contemplate development of accessory structures on their residential properties. The proposed amendments to section 5.2.8 to increase the maximum ARU size to 60% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling to a maximum of 100 square meters can also be considered appropriate, as it will facilitate the development of a larger ARU or second ARU where a principal dwelling has a gross floor area of less than 160 square meters. The current provisions that permit ARUs to the 100 square meters cumulative cap on the floor area for all ARUs on a lot remain, as the purpose of the provision is to ensure that ARUs remain secondary to the principal dwelling on the lot and remain comparably a more affordable housing type. These provisions also assist to differentiate ARUs and between ARUs and other multi-unit dwelling types that are subject to more stringent development standards with respect to parking, amenity areas, and a minimum lot area, and remains subject to development charges. Planning staff are supportive of these changes as they will provide for additional opportunities for ARU development and dwellings throughout the city, provided they comply with underlying zone provisions, including required yards, lot frontage, lot areas, driveway widths, and parking requirements. And so the recommendation is that the city of Woodstock approve the zone change for the application submitted by the city.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Councillor Leatherborough.
Thank you, through your worship, to the planner. I was just confused, and maybe it's a me problem, but on the template here under restricted areas, the last point where it says on any lot containing a boarding or lodging house, a group home type 1, a group home type 2, a garden suite. I was a little confused if garden suite has to stay in there. What is the definition of a garden suite? Is an ARU essentially a garden suite? So I just wanted to understand the purpose of that being there and if it has to stay there.
So through the mayor, to you, I suspect that now that ARUs are permitted, we'll get very few applications for garden suites. Garden suites are ARUs, but they were always permitted on a temporary basis. So a garden suite it has an expiry date. When that comes, it's intended that the garden suite will be removed. They're generally intended for elderly parents, someone who needs care. So if you are a person who does not want an ARU to be permitted on your property, but you still need to care for someone, you could still apply for a garden suite and then get that off your property when the need for it ends.
Just learned something myself. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? I do have a question for you, Mr. Miller. And we spoke briefly about this earlier, so just one for clarification. I know there's some confusion for those watching Monday evening about the 100 meters squared being a cumulative. So I just want to be clear, and for those watching, basement apartment can be whatever size. So if you've got a 1,500 square foot home, you can have a 1,500 square foot basement ARU, and still now with the wording or the clarification on this bylaw, you can still have an accessory unit would still be up to 100 meters squared, so approximately 1,000 square foot, say above a garage or even inside of a garage instead of above, correct?
That's correct. We came to the conclusion that your basement is what it is.
Right.
If your whole basement is an ARU, that's the size it is. It's usually the footprint of the whole house, so it's likely to be over and probably doesn't leave you space for a second ARU if you wanted one. So we clarified that the wording was intended to allow you to have a basement unit and then potentially another.
Yeah, so for those also watching, the city has a limit anyways of accessory structures of 75 meters squared. So then this should cover that with that 100 meter, that should cover any accessory structure. So my next question going into this is, someone from the public asked, and I thought it was a good question. If they have an existing, let's call it a regular lot here in the city of Woodstock, and they've got an existing secondary structure of a garage, they cannot add onto the height of the garage. Well, I suppose they could, but let's say they didn't want to go build up to go to 6 meters. Their question was, could I put a tiny home in the backyard? And your answer would be?
So these provisions are meant to accommodate most regular sized lots. So we want to make sure, so when we set a maximum accessory structure area size, we want to make sure there's still enough room for amenity space, drainage, setbacks, things like that. So yes, it's cumulative for all those structures. So if you're 75 square meters is an existing garage, that's the structure area you have. We discussed, there is potential for exception. If you have a lot that is not a standard size, if you have a large lot, that's what the minor variance process is for. We can possibly consider more accessory structure area, but in the most cases, the 75 square meters fits for most lots.
So as per discussion earlier, if there's someone out there that has, say, that larger lot with the possibility of it might make sense, we do have a minor variance application that could be applied, and then we look at those, or the committee looks at those, sorry, on a case-by-case basis. And
That's
can
right.
apply.
Minor variances are meant to be considered on a site specific basis. So if someone has a site that warrants something else, that's how we consider it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions before we have the planner sit down? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion. Counselor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni, that Woodstock City Council approve the zone change application submitted by the City of Woodstock, ZN 8-24-15, to increase the maximum permitted height of residential accessory buildings and increase the maximum size for additional residential units throughout the city, and further that the comments received from the public were received and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder on the motion? Counselor Leatherborough? Discussion? Or questions? Counselor Schattenberg?
Maybe just a statement. I can't vote in favor of this because it's 6 meters high and it's only 1.22 meters off your property, your neighbor's property. So I think that's too high to be that close.
Thank you. Counselor Tate?
Yeah, through the chair, just, I'm going to be consistent and I'm also not going to support this. I do not like the height. I didn't like it from the beginning. And as everyone knows, I'm not a great big fan of the ARUs to start with.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Lauder?
I also don't agree with the height. I have an issue with ARUs, but having a height on a garage or an outer building like this, 'cause we've had complaints. I know on Cardinal, I had a lot of issues, people calling about the height of an outdoor garage. And so I won't be voting in favor of this.
Anyone else? Then I'll add my 2 cents. I will be voting in favor of this. I think we hear constantly about the need for affordable housing. ARUs allow us to have the affordable housing. by adding the additional meter on the heights would allow an apartment to be above a garage, and we're still not taking up a parking space. And I like the idea of them at least having the option of using a parking space inside of a garage instead of on our street. So for that reason alone, I like the idea of the heights. And again, we simply need more affordable housing, and ARUs is the way to do it. Not only are they typically more affordable, but it's also adding a way so some families can afford to buy and afford a mortgage these days. So for those reasons, I'm in favor of it. Any final questions before I call the vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries 4-3. Next up, consideration of correspondence. 10A, United Way Oxford request for use of Reeves Community Complex for stair climb event. Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the in-kind donation request from United Way Oxford for the student stair climb event.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion? I'll simply say, if anybody has not been to this event before, I encourage them to bring earplugs. Having 1,000 students inside in one place, stomping and cheering and yelling at the top of their lungs is quite an experience. And I thank staff for putting up for that. Councillor Schanberg.
I just want to mention this is the 20th student stair climb. I was at the first one because I was on the original committee with Kelly Gilson and the crew to organize this event well before I was obviously on city council. So I think it's a terrific event, and anything that gains extra awareness for the United Way, as this would in a substantial way, goes a long way in helping their overall campaign.
I also, and I echo your sentiment. I haven't been there 20 years ago, but I've been able to attend quite a few times over the last dozen years, give or take. And it's certainly a great way to introduce youth to the United Way, in my opinion. So I like this idea. With that, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried unanimous. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's September of November 7th. Sorry, thank you very much. Next up, we have 10B, 2024 Downtown Woodstock Summer Street Fest. Request for street closures. Councillor Leatherbar.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council refer the request regarding street closures for the 2024 Downtown Woodstock Summer Street Fest to the bylaws section of the agenda.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder? Councillor Lauder, discussion? Seeing none, just remind the general public that Street Fest is next weekend. Mark your calendars, get down. It's gonna be exciting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday downtown. And with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. No staff presentations tonight that I'm aware of, no mayor's reports, no councillor reports. We do have some department reports this evening. From Administrative Services, we have 14A.1, Statement of Revenue and Expenditures, Statement of Capital Expenditures for the period ending June 30th, 2024. Looking for a motion? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the statement of revenue and expenditure and the statement of capital expenditures for the period ending June 30th, 2024 as information.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder? Councillor Schanberg. Questions, discussion? Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, from the mayor through to Brian Connerson at Parks and Recreation. The one item I noticed that was quite substantial is that Victoria Day revenue was projected to be 15,000 this year, and it actually gained 39,800 plus. So that was a substantial event. So first of all, congratulations to your department and Kristen Broadhagen on special events. But some reasonings as to why Victoria Day weekend did so well this year?
Your worship, through to the councilor's question, the weather was extraordinarily good that weekend. That helps with the attendance, and I believe successful past Victoria Days, do let the public know that, there, it's a good time down there and it's worth going. So I believe that's the rationale.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried, none opposed. Next up, we have 14A.2 Canada Community Building Fund, a CCBF. Looking for a motion, Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the municipal funding agreement to access the Canada Community Building Fund and that the necessary bylaw be passed.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder, Councillor Martin. Discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Unanimous, none opposed. Next up, we do have engineering, 14B.1, Southside Pond Cleanout, a tender award contract. Councillor Lauder,
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council award the tender for the reconstruction of the Southside Pond cleanout to Green Space Construction, Inc. in the amount of $2,817,181.02, inclusive of HST.
glad you didn't forget that 2 cents. Second by Councillor Leatherborough. Discussion? Councillor Lauder.
It's really great to see this happening. I think we've been waiting for this for quite a while, and I know we kept in 2 or 3 councils before have started putting money aside for this. So it's great to see this actually going to happen. So thank you.
Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I'm going to ask if Mr. DeHaan might be able to just kind of explain what is in the plans, because I've had a lot of people ask me, some people think we're getting rid of Southside Pond. Some people think that it's going to be reconstructed complete. I mean, there's a lot of great stories out there that I've enjoyed hearing. So maybe if we can just let folks know exactly what the plan is, that would be great.
Your worship, through the counselor. We started this process in, I think it was 2011, and with a couple of public information centers. And the public was really adamantly clear that they did not want the pond to change. So ultimately, the pond should look exactly as it looks right now. The work basically consists of dredging out all the accumulated sludge and stuff that's in the pond right now, that so that basically we don't have ducks walking across it. But ultimately, when it's done, well, other than some surface treatments right along the water's edge to try to discourage ducks from using the pond, or sorry, geese from using the pond, it's going to look a lot like what it does right now.
Just a follow up. So with that, so somebody asked me, does that mean Southside Pond is going to be swimmable again like they did when they were a young folk? And I said, I'm not really sure I can answer that question, but what does that look like in that? I'm not sure how many people are running there to go swimming, and I'm not encouraging folks to do that, but they're just curious as to what the water quality might be like, I guess.
Your worship, through the counselor, although originally this project is along with the creek that was done downstream of the dam, was part of to address the water quality of Cedar Creek. However, this pond is right at basically at the entrance of the Cedar Creek entrance. And it's not in great condition. The water's not great. The water quality is not that great coming in already. So it'll be deep enough. I wouldn't swim in it.
I was at Southgate Center, like many of us yesterday, and I was asked that, are we planning on putting a sand beach like they remember quite a few years ago? And I assured them that I don't think so. Councillor Sandberg.
I guess as a point of clarification from the mayor through to Harold DeHaan, will there still be some sort of a deeper sort of a forebay closer to the Parkinson Bridge, that kind of an idea to maybe create some colder water as it enters basically the pond and then the Cedar Creek beyond that?
Your worship, through to the counselor. Actually, the idea of an underground or underwater forebay actually got eliminated through the design process. basically because, Ministry of Natural Resources said if it had a 4 bay, it would be considered a water quality pond, in which case, and they don't allow water quality ponds in line of a creek. So we basically had to promise them to remove that in order to get the permit to do the work.
I guess just one further comment. I was on the phone today with our friend Phil Holst from Ducks Unlimited, and he was applauding the city of Woodstock to go forward with this project. Of course, downstream from that into Hodges Pond in that area, south of Woodstock in the Norwich Township. And they've done a lot of work in public meetings and dating back a long time too, to create better water and removing a dam from Hodges Pond and then entering Woodstock. And the whole idea is the UTRCA does report cards every 3 or 4 years on water quality. And if we can improve that, that's a great thing.
Counselor Tate?
The chair, if just, the city engineer can also comment on the money portion, because that's what I had the question of. They thought we were spending it new money right now, but just to clarify to the public, it is not new money.
Your worship, through the counselor. Yes, 1 or 2 councils ago, I don't know exactly, but they put into effect a reserve for this project in which the city contributed $500,000 every year. And we've now basically, this was the year that kind of got us up to the construction cost estimate. So that's why we're going forward with the project.
If my memory serves me correct, I think it was 2014 to 2018, our council term, that we started that, or at least I remember those discussions. Yeah, so thank you. Counselor Lauder?
I just have one comment about Southside Pond. Years ago, they used to have bathtub races there. And if you fell in, you didn't have to worry about getting drowned. You only had to worry about getting rid of the clothes that you wore. Because there was no way you could get the smell out of them. So I think this will be a great thing happening.
Thank you. Counselor Martin?
Through you. So speaking of smell, I assume that this is a winter project because some of what might come out of the pond might have a bit of an odor. And that would be lessened in the cold weather than at 34 degrees and humidity?
Your worship, through the counselor, that is a major consideration. And also, it has to do with turtles, believe it or not, also waiting for them to hibernate.
Okay. Yeah. So if you do live in that area, be aware there might be a slight smell to this, but it is better for the long run. It's like construction. Let's go through the pain and it's worth it at the end. Anyone else? No? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. We are going to have a cleaner Southside Pond, thankfully. Next up, 14B.2 amendments to traffic bylaw. Looking for a motion. Councillor Leatherborough?
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the report regarding amendments to traffic bylaw number 8021-04 as information.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Tate, discussion. Councillor Tate?
Through the chair, I just had one comment. I'd like to thank the city engineer. There was somebody that had one of these streets, there was an issue and he came out in person and spoke to them and they were very impressed. And our staff is always very good about that. So just want to acknowledge that.
I agree. Sorry for the delay there. Anyone else? Councillor Schadenberg?
Yes, I think it's very important, just as a comment, that when a report like this comes through, that people actually look at it. For example, Algonquin School has always had traffic issues, and now they've got about 900 students there. So their no parking zone now goes into Beaver Place as well, up Indian Road. So people have to really take a look at this, because I'm sure a lot of people have made comments over time to sort of say, well, what about this street? What about that street? I guess my question to Mr. DeHaan would be is, if somebody has a concern or a question about their street, who and when do they contact somebody about asking for visibility at an intersection or anything along that line?
Your worship, through the counselor, yeah, questions along those natures would come to the either the general engineering number or myself or Adam K, municipal manager of municipal infrastructure.
Thank you. Anyone else? So in reference to what Councillor Schellenberg is referring to, I recommend, if you're curious, to make sure you pull up section 14.B.2 to see if your area is affected. And with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. So next up, we have cultural services. So 14C.1 municipal alcohol policy. Looking for a motion. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approves the revised council policy PR 010 municipal alcohol policy.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Angione. I had a quick question. I'm not sure if it's for the clerk or for the CEO, but do we have a separate policy that deals with the temporary patios on Dundas Street and the alcohol consumption related to those? Because they're on, the parking spaces would be municipal property. And so I'm wondering, does that have a separate policy, or should that be addressed in this policy as municipal property? I apologize that I wasn't here in June when this was originally debated, but it comes to my attention now.
Through your worship to Councillor Martin's question, so the requirement is that the business has is permitted to serve alcohol. And so for them to have it served out on the patio, the business indoors needs to have the ability to serve alcohol, and we're just extending that outside.
If I may follow up, then I believe it was in January of 2023, the province changed how liquor license approvals for outdoor consumption, that is now approved through the city rather than the AGCO that we used to be approved for. So that's where I'm wondering, does that, so it's a municipal approval on municipal property. And so I wondered if it does have a place here in this policy.
I don't have an answer for that right now, but I can definitely look into it. So just to explain, the way AGCO has historically always been the approving body, but as of this year, January 1st, they've asked the applicants to apply through the municipality. The municipality will offer their approvals through a letter, and that letter is uploaded to a portal on the AGCO website. But we can look into that and maybe get back to you.
So I'll just try and weigh in as well. So your worship, through to Councillor Martin, when we're doing a temporary patio, we're essentially entering into a lease agreement for the use of that real estate, which is a little different than somebody who's renting our facility for one specific event. So because we're renting them the space essentially through a lease agreement, then they're transferring their liquor license to that space. That's why we would not have considered it to be part of the alcohol policy, because it's an actual, we're giving them rights to that real estate for this period of time.
So just to follow up then, how does that differ from a special occasions permit, which is also a temporary, albeit much shorter, not 4 months? Usually a special occasion permit is for 1, maybe 2 days. How is that technically different?
In one case, I believe, your worship, through to Councillor Martin, you're dealing with a rental versus a contracted lease arrangement. So if you're renting space through a lease arrangement, you're assigning the rights to do what they wish with that space in accordance with whatever terms of that lease are. So it kind of steps outside of the policy in that regard, because we're signing a separate agreement with them.
Good, you don't seem so confident. Processing, I get it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next up from Parks and Recreation, we have 14D.1, future location of pickleball courts. And I just heard a whole bunch of people cheer watching us. Counselor Tate.
I'll move the motion that Woodstock City Council directs staff to research and cost the construction of a multi-court outdoor pickleball facility at Cowan Fields.
Thank you. And a seconder, Counselor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion? Counselor Tate.
Just a comment, I've had many discussions with the group up on Park Row, and we all know they wanted to expand there, but I did send them the report and they were all very happy with the report, so that was good to hear. So, and I've talked to, and there's other groups. So I heard from one group, they don't like to play indoor, but there is a group that does play indoor, so it's not as contentious as it sounded. It's actually flowing quite well. So thank you to staff for doing this, and I think they're having a big party tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So, thank you.
Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Just more of a comment on the report that we received, and maybe Mr. Connors can speak to it. But when they looked at Brompton Park and the concerns of sound and noise, it just happened probably the week before. I was staying up well beyond my bedtime and saw this report on the news about complaints of noise complaints from pickleball courts coming in. And so I thought it was really interesting that within a week later that came up. So maybe Mr. Connors can just speak to why Brompton Park was not considered, because I know there was a bit of a hybrid option that was looked at, but in the report, it kind of touches on why that wasn't the ideal answer to it.
Your worship, through to the councilor's question. Sometimes it's a good thing not to be first. So after contacting other colleagues in other municipalities with their experience with hybrid courts, there was a lot of complaints between pickleball players and tennis players, as well as sound complaints that weren't observed with tennis alone, just because of the striking of the ball.
Thank you. Counselor Schanberg.
Yeah, I guess I just want to supply some insight. I talked to George Way, who's on the Southwest Oxford Council, and tried to get them to explain how in Sweeburg they built one pickleball court. So I thought one was not enough really, because you think even if you have mini tournament, you have to have at least 2 courts. But so they have 1 court that's gone up in Sweeburg. It might be open today or tomorrow. It's going to be really soon that it will be open. But the township, Southwest Oxford, was going to pay for 75% of it. And that the sports recreation community of Sweeburg had to come up with the other 25%. So I put that forward to people who might be watching this and paying attention as well, to sort of think, I'm not saying that they have a bad idea, because let's face it, Lions Club and so many other people in Sweeburg can come up with dollars to help fund a project like that. But obviously in the city of Woodstock, we're going to put this together without asking for money from service groups, I would guess.
Well, I'll certainly make the formal ask. If somebody else would like to come forward and pay for these courts, I'm sure we would accept it. If there's a donator out there, I'll open it up to that, thanks to Councillor Schanberg. But so far, I'm not aware of any at this point. But we do have policies in place for that. Any other discussion? I'm simply going to add, I'm really excited with this. I like the report. I like the thinking of staff, so I want to say thank you. It's definitely been a demand for the last few years that does need to be satisfied more because of the popularity of it, and I think this kind of does it. So with that, I'll call the vote if nobody else has any comments or questions. All those in favor? That is carried. We have more pickleball facilities. Next up, also Parks and Rec, 14D.2, recreation space allocation policy. Looking for a motion? Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approves the revised council policy PR 014- recreation space allocation policy.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through your worship, if I could just ask Mr. Connors just a brief summary of this policy and why it is before us tonight.
Your worship, through to the councilor's question. There is two changes that we'd like to see introduced into the space allocation policy. The first is a new building space allocation. So what this does is when we do build, and we are building new facilities, that different user groups can get into those facilities for the first 5 years. So it's just not locked down by one user group in particular. As far as the allocation policy goes. The other one is for tournaments for our Class A sports fields. This allows tournaments to happen, which take place over long periods of time, the entire weekend or Friday and the weekend. And we wouldn't be booking like a single practice on those fields. We would move practices to other fields.
Thank you. Anyone else? With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried, none opposed. And I'd like to step back a wee bit. I think I maybe misspoke slightly on the pickleball courts. I don't want to say it's done because I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, that it will come forward to a future council meeting, discussions and budget times before that is. So just for those watching pickleball and I don't want to, yeah, sorry. Thought of that after I said, yeah. Next up, we have economic development, 14E.1, proposed transfer of lands located on Admiral Street to the county of Oxford. Looking for a motion. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council declare surplus the section of Admiral Street located west of Tecumseh Street, and further that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an acknowledgement and direction to transfer the subject lands to the county, and that the necessary bylaw be read.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Martin. Discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Next up from the clerks, no, sorry, nothing from the clerks, but we do have Chief Administrator Officer of 14.G.1, Next Generation 911 Authority Service Agreement. Looking for a motion. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the Next Generation 911 Authority Service Agreement with Bell Canada.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Tate. Questions, discussion? Okay. I'll just make, for those wondering at home, my understanding of this, and I'll ask the CA to correct me if I'm wrong, with the new 911, of course, it's going to be a lot more mobile friendly with this next generation for any emergency calls is my take on the whole important. It's obviously much bigger than that, but that's what it boils down to in my thoughts. So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, so that is carried. Nothing from human resources tonight, or fire services, or public works, or IT. So that brings us to special committee and advisory task force reports. 15A, naming rights agreement for the gallery 4th floor. Looking for a motion. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the report regarding naming rights agreement, gallery 4th floor as information.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Tate. Discussion. Councillor Lauder.
This is just a comment I would like to make. I'd like to thank the Dr. Leonard Reeves for agreeing to the $100,000 contribution to offset the city's contribution of $235,185 for the renovations of the 4th floor of the art gallery. Dr. Leonard Reeves gives so much to our community. There was an announcement yesterday at Southgate too. So he really is to be commended on what he does for our community. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely well said. Anyone else? I'd also like to thank our director curator, Ms. Reed. I mean, all the work that's gone into this and all the work the staff have done at the art gallery. I want to congratulate them on getting this up and ready. I can't wait to be there for the grand opening. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Next up, we have 14B, Adult Public Programs Coordinator. Looking for a motion? Counselor Lauder?
I'll move that this Woodstock City Council directs staff and the Woodstock Art Gallery Advisory Board to continue to pursue the opportunity for donation to facilitate the See You at the Movies film program with the Woodstock Art Gallery for possible consideration as part of the 2026 revenue budget deliberations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the motion? Counselor Schattenberg? Discussion. Counselor Lauder?
Before the discussion, is it proper to ask Ms. Reed to speak to this request?
Sorry, absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Councillor Lauder, for asking me to say a few comments about the report. As council can appreciate with the last reports on tonight's agenda, I've been quite focused on fundraising of late. Our signature fundraiser, Taste of Art, is just around the corner, and the early bird tickets were launched this week. I do encourage you, if you haven't gotten your ticket, to please get it early because we did sell out quite quickly last year. And to echo Councillor Lauder's comments, I would be remiss in not extending my appreciation to Dr. Leonard Rees for his generous contribution to the gallery's fourth floor as per the second report you received this evening. This last report is looking to the future of what the fourth floor can do, not only in terms of the long-term sustainability of the art gallery, but more importantly in service to our community. The fourth floor is planned to be a community hub that promotes and enhances educational experiences for gallery visitors, providing long-term benefits for our community. The intention of this generous donation is focused on connecting our adult and senior audiences through the very popular art house film program, See You at the Movies, bus tours, and art appreciation talks and demonstrations. It's also intended to connect with the more vulnerable sectors in our community, such as seniors living in retirement residence and/or clients of social service agencies. The gallery receives numerous requests each year to deliver off-site programming, and at the present, the resources are just not available to accommodate these opportunities. It is planned that this proposed position will take on these outreach activities, further broadening the reach and the impact of the gallery. As outlined in this report, this request is driven by a generous donation of $50,000 to the gallery's investment fund by a private individual. It is recognized that it is following outside of the normal budgeting sequence due to time-sensitive matters that I'm not at liberty to discuss in this public forum. This donation triggers two streams of financial support, one through the interest generated from the investment fund, and two through the revenue generated from the adult programs through registration fees and corporate sponsorship. I certainly hope that Council appreciates my ongoing and tireless effort to reduce the gallery's burden on taxpayers, while at the same time providing a dynamic and impactful community resource. Your kind consideration is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Questions of Ms. Reed? Seeing none. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you.
Counselor Lauder?
I'd like to comment. I want to thank the donor for the generous offer of a donation of $50,000, which is greatly appreciated for the revival of See You at the Movies after the fourth floor renovations are completed. However, with the conditions set out in the information provided, I cannot support hiring a full-time position in 2025, as has been stipulated to accommodate this request. Even though this is a generous offer, the donation has presented comes at a cost to the taxpayer. Since we have had significant increase in property taxes this year, I cannot commit to adding a person to accommodate this request in the 2025 revenue budget at this time. I do support bringing the See You at the Movies back for consideration in some form as part of the 2026 revenue budget deliberations after the fourth floor renovations are completed. I know that See You at the Movies was a great program. I enjoyed it. I know many people enjoyed it, but I feel that this came a little bit early, a little bit premature, and I support See You at the Movies, and I want to make sure that the donor realizes this. But I put this motion forward for the 2026 deliberations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Just a comment to kind of go along with Councillor Lauder. I appreciate that you brought this motion forward because I do also support it. It felt a little bit like cart before the horse in a bit. We just went through a very big budget where we saw some departments that hadn't had hiring in close to 30 years. And we've had some new positions coming into the art gallery, not to say that they're not needed and not to say that this is not needed, but I think that I also feel like this is maybe a one step at a time, and the generosity of this donor is not being ignored, and it's very much appreciated. But I agree with Councillor Lauder in the fact that if we can just bring this back to the See You at the Movies and get that going, get this fourth floor opened, see what that's going to look like as we move forward, and then have this considered in the coming years. I think that's really on a fiscal responsibility. That's the best choices that we could make.
Thank you. Counselor Tate. Oh, Counselor Leatherborough.
I'm gonna pass the torch back to you and then I'll go.
Saw your hand up first, so I didn't want. I'm also going to support Councillor Lauder's motion and thank you for bringing it forward. I am very apprehensive about approving a position in the middle of the year, especially as noted, we went through a very, very difficult budget year. I am getting daily calls from people that are devastated at the increases and it's been really difficult. So I think we have to be extremely careful. And when we start approving stuff before we even get to that, and as my fellow counselor said, we've had departments that went for years and years. And I think this puts them in a terrible position. We approve before they've even had a chance. So we don't even know what the next budget's going to look like. So greatly appreciate the offer of the donation, but it's going to cost the taxpayers. And I cannot go through with that. So thank you to Councillor Lauder for working on a new motion and I will support it.
Thank you. Counselor Leatherborough.
Perfect. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So thank you, Councillor Lauder, for bringing this forward as well. I have expressed many a times what a fan I am of the See You at the Movies program. Certainly it's longstanding 20 years, and then in 2015, it looks they added an extra screen time. I spoke with Councillor Lauder today on the phone just to kind of digest what this motion was and then kind of mirroring it against the report. So I am putting it out to council. Just what I was wondering is, what I'm hearing is that we support the See You at the Movies returning, but it's not, the timing is the question. We're thankful for the donor, and we don't necessarily want to lose that donation, especially to the arts program for the community. So I had said to Councillor Lauder that I would likely put this to the floor of, would council have an appetite to change the verbiage of, we support the return of the See You at the Movies Film program. And rather than considering in 2026, would we want to consider it in 2025? The reason I say that is because it still doesn't put us in a position to make a spend today. We had also discussed the position that we approved, that's kind of that joint partnership with the art gallery and the little theater, which is to commence shortly. So we don't actually have evidence as to how that went. But just to kind of keep the momentum of, I know personally, I've had a lot of people inquire about the See You at the Movies program. We don't know what that program looks like since 2019. So there's no dollar amount today, but I did want to just put it out to everyone to see if we were comfortable including language that says supports the return of See You at the Movies film program. And then potentially looking at 2025 deliberations instead of 2026.
Thank you. Then I'll look to council to see if there is an appetite. I will consider that as a friendly amendment if the mover and the seconder were interested only. So Councillor Tate?
I don't think that's a friendly amendment. I think it'd be a whole new motion, would it not be? Because the wording in the motion is 2026. So you'd
Correct,
have
to
to
change
change the
that to
entire,
2025.
you'd have to change
Keep
the
all the
entire
wording
motion.
until, is my understanding is what you're talking about, Councillor Leatherborough? Yeah, well, we can. All right, so maybe, Councillor Tate?
I would not support that just for the exact same reasons that I said, because we were tying the hands already. We already know that, all the positions we did this year, we're only paying half, so they're gonna be full-time. And I think it's really important that we wait till we hire the position, and we may not need another position. We don't know. So I think we're getting way ahead because we didn't have these positions before and it ran successfully. So I think we got to be very cautious that we don't jump ahead, because the stuff we approve now is already coming in 2025. So that's why I support the original motion.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm gonna take that off the table then, since the first and seconder don't agree as a friendly, then we'll stick with the original motion. Okay? Any other discussion on the current motion that Councillor Lauder presented? Then I'll just add to this that, I was having a very tough time with this. I'm not gonna lie. The way it was originally worded in our agendas, after the budget deliberations at both county and city here, I learned very quickly what the cost is at the end for next year of what those commitments you make throughout the year. They're very expensive, and with the fiscal responsibilities that was mentioned already, I am going to be in favor of Councillor Lauder's motion because I do believe this kind of delays that. I want to see you at the movies. I really appreciate the donor. I hope the donor would be interested to still make those donations. I don't think there's any question this council doesn't want to see that come back. But again, with the fiscal challenges we're all facing at home and as a city, I think it's the responsible thing to do in today's climate. So with that, any other comments, questions before I call the vote on Councillor Lauder's motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, that is carried. So next up, no notice of motions, no business, which brings us to draft bylaws. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Leatherbarrow, that the following bylaws be given a first and second reading, 9693-24 through to inclusive 9701-24.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, you did say a seconder there, correct? Okay, good. Any questions on those or comments? Before I call the vote? All those in favor? That is carried, none opposed. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Leatherbarrow, that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading, 9693-24 through to 9701-24.
Inclusive. Yes. Thank you. Any other final chance, questions, comments? All those in favor? Those are carried. And tonight, this brings us to Councillor Lauder. Why don't you start tonight? Sorry.
Thank you. From the Art Gallery, looking for something for your budding artist to do this summer. The Woodstock Art Gallery still has a few spaces available this summer in their half-day art classes geared to children ages 6 to 12. Please visit the gallery's website for more details. And on Sunday, I, along with Councillor Schadenberg, had the privilege of attending the Ivan Cupola Holiday Ukraine celebration on their new style calendar, and that's what's from the descriptions of this weekend. It's July the 7th is their summer solstice, different from ours, and so it was quite interesting. And the cupola derives its name from the Slavic word, which means bathing. Thus, their celebrations are held on the banks of the rivers, always near water. Therefore, Roth Park was the perfect venue for this celebration. Thanks to the Ukraine people for showing their culture of celebrating this special day when it takes place. And looking forward to the Street Fest on July the 19th through the 20th, and with Southgate continuing the fun Street Fest cruise on Sunday the 21st. Hope to see everyone at the car show. And yesterday was a very special day at Southgate, the celebration of the groundbreaking ceremony, everything in place to commence construction on July the 17th. Enjoy the summer until we meet again in August. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leatherborough.
Street Fest is next week. Street Fest is coming up. I know Councilor Lauder just said that, but that was really my go-to. I'm looking forward to it. The Thursday night, the 18th, is the late night shopping. It's been bumped up a week. So lots of businesses have special offerings as well. It's going to be the Street Fest kickoff. And I'll be downtown all weekend long, probably on a golf cart with the BIA staff, Dwayne and Carrie Baird. Trying to say that more often. Yep. So anyway, Street Fest coming up, and also just a big round of applause for the summer camp programs and all of the employees. My 3 boys are in camp this week, and there are so many moving parts. Danielle, the staff, everybody does such a great job. So that's all I have, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
I think my colleagues have covered it. Have a great month ahead of our next August meeting. Yeah, take some time to relax and rest and get ready for another, August, and then AMO, Association of Municipalities, the following week. So happy summer.
Absolutely. Councillor Tate.
I ran into Chris Camboya today just by chance, and I was actually very impressed. He was out with his real estate cards dropping off, and he was talking to a neighbor, so I stopped to chat to him. And we're a very big sports family, very big football fans, and I mean, he was big. He was the coach of the Wolverine football. He was very successful, did a lot of work in the city, but I didn't realize that both of his kids ended up on the Alabama football team, which is really impressive. So I just have to give him a shout out for that, because I was shocked. I had no idea. And I thought, I don't know why it's never been in the paper, because it's a big deal. So anyways, on the, so good for him, and congratulations to him and his family for all the work they've done. And just on a personal note, we will be watching the Olympics. My niece's spouse will be doing his 4th Olympics. And for some reason, they put the decathlon at the beginning of the meet. I don't know why. It's normally the big event and it's at the end, but my sister said, thankfully, because you'll get there and you'll get home with all the unrest there. I was like, okay, that's a positive. So that's at the beginning of August. So we'll be watching that and see everybody at Street Fest.
Thank you. And yes, the Camboya family is actually a very talented family, played football with them all, and obviously kids as well. So that's, yes, I knew they're at Alabama. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I'm just going to read something I posted yesterday in relation to Eugenia De Silva, who, of course, many people, Jenny was missing, and a lot of folks were really worried about that. We're all very thankful to read the news that Jenny was found. But I posted yesterday that during my time working in media, I covered similar stories. And while many folks often want to know the details, have questions, and hearsay, they're curious to know more about, the police will release information if it is necessary to do so. They are requesting privacy for the family, and the folks need to respect this rather than speculate. Let's send our positive thoughts and energy to Jenny and her family. So I just think it's important to reiterate that, because the amount of stories that were going around in that time, let's just send positivity to her and her family and just be thankful that she was found safe. I am clocking off for vacation as soon as we shut this down, so I'm leaving my laptop and my cell phone behind, and I'm going to just completely disconnect and spend some time with my family. I do plan on being at Street Fest. I'll be back in time for that, so I hope to see everyone then, and we'll see you in August.
Excellent. Well, enjoy. And well said about Jenny. Counselor Schanberg.
Yeah, first off, I have a couple of questions for our Parks and Recreations, Brian Connors. First of all, about sponsorship. I know the Lions Club, for example, bought a park bench that already existed on the trail system in Woodstock to recognize the passings of Bill Gillespie, Joe Sweeney, and Dennis Edlington. Give us more background as to how somebody can go through to get a sponsorship, whether it's a park bench or a ball diamond or anything other facility, board advertising in the arena for Woodstock.
Your worship, through the councillor's question, they could call the parks line, which is the city's phone number, and then the extension 4101. You'll get in contact with Kristen Broadhagen, who deals with all of our sponsorships and naming rights. The only caveat would be if it is dealing with the arena board, and then Darren and Janice will end up being your contact, but Kristen will make sure she contacts you quite quickly.
Always good to get updates on information like that. And looking for one more update from you, Brian, is the name Monteith Brown and what it means to the city of Woodstock currently.
Your worship, through the council.
The consultants of Monteith
Yeah.
Brown, the work they're doing currently in Woodstock.
Currently, Monteith Brown are the consultants that are working on the arena feasibility study. And they're also working on a parks master plan that deals with the policies surrounding Bill 23. And they're working on that currently. They'll be working on that through the summer, and the goal is to have them present before council before the capital budget comes to council.
Also, since I'm required to do a sports item on Saturday, July the 13th at 3 p.m. So that's this weekend, Western Ontario Soccer League Woodstock Stallions premier team is hosting a team from Toronto Celtic. And this, we talked lots about soccer lately, especially with Canada's success at Copa America. But the Woodstock Stallions currently have a record of 7-1-1, and in their last game beat the Chatham Express 8-0. So this is certainly a team you probably want to catch at Cowan Sportsplex. My last item, and it's something we talked about previously with Mayor Accioni, is the fact that Connie Lauder and myself had attended the Ivana Kupala event at Roth Park on Sunday. And one of the things they were trying to promote was something called the Saint Sophia's Ukrainian Saturday School, to try to establish something. Now, I grew up in like Schattenberg, going to German classes at the German Canadian Club when I was a child back on Saturday morning. So I'm sure that would be a little bit like that. But the one thing that Mayor Accioni was presented to the city of Woodstock was a painting that was done specifically for the city of Woodstock. I don't know if we can get a good shot on the screen there right now if Mr. Grattan can switch camera angles. But Ina Terletska was a painter on that, and it's called Petrevsky painting is kind of the name of it, but the actual name of the painting itself is Mocha. And the other thing that was very important about that event is that David and Karen Murray were recognized for all their time and energies they've had towards the Ukrainian families that were moving to Oxford County and Woodstock recently. And the event included some Ukrainian songs, kids dancing, and also a ceremony of caring where two people joined hands to jump over basically a set of sticks, as if the set of sticks were a fire. But it was sort of a teamwork or a sort of an honesty program that they did. So it was a very good and a well-attended event on Sunday. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for that. And I would like to thank Councillor Schattenberg and Councillor Lauder to attend to represent the city council. Fortunately, or not unfortunately, I was at a family's, my uncle turned 75 years old for a surprise birthday party in Orangeville. So unfortunately, I was out of town. So thank you for attending in our place. And I want to say thank you to all the organizers and the painter of that. We will find a location here at City Hall somewhere and make sure that's mounted. I'd like to say a big happy birthday to my baby girl. She is 21 years old today, and I took her out, had a lunch with her, and I'm telling you, I had tears thinking about how fast 21 years goes. I just, those with young kids enjoy, they grow up so quick, I can't stress it enough. I know we've heard it from our parents, from our grandparents. But let me tell you, it is the absolute truth. And my granddaughter is going to be home in a week and a half, and I couldn't be more excited. And here she is, 8 months old, and pulling herself up and crawling already. So it's pretty incredible. So time flies, and just hold on to those kids and enjoy them. Street Fest, of course, has been mentioned. I'm sure it's going to be a great event. Enjoy the festivities, the 19th to the 21st. There's going to be a lot going on. Please attend with your entire family. I'd like to say a big thank you to for Canada Day. I think it was another huge success for those that were in attendance. In fact, there wasn't many out of the city that weren't there by the looks of it. It was incredible. Thank you to Toyota for their big sponsorship, of course, of the fireworks. Another great show, got lots of compliments, and people are really happy to see that. I'd like to give a big plug for the Taste of Art. I got my tickets within hours of them going public. The art gallery, it's probably one of my favorite events. I've never kept that a secret here in the city of Woodstock. If there's one night you want to consider a nice date night, take your spouse or a good friend, go out, enjoy some great local food and a couple of drinks. I would recommend do not eat before you go. There is lots to see and do while you're there, but it's a great event that tickets are on sale. And as our director mentioned, typically sell out quick. So make sure you get on there and order those right away. With that, have a safe and fun summer, everyone. We will see you back here in a month. And with that, I'm looking for an adjournment. Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Leatherborough. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.